these reasons. So business improvement districts in the general world happen everywhere. We've got, I think, Colin probably knows, we probably have 5 of them in town already. Business improvement districts down Old Mammoth Road, different neighborhoods have them. It can be for snow removal, it can be for beautification. The tourism business improvement districts are specifically for promotion of a destination. So again, it started in West Hollywood back in 1989. There are a handful of other states that now have those: Montana, Louisiana, South Dakota, Colorado, and then there are some cities that have them. So Wichita, Kansas has one, and a few others. So it's formed under the Property and Business Improvement Law of 1994. So there is a 1989 law and there's a 1994 law. We are formed under the 1994 law. That's all of this information is included in the management district plan. So if you go to mltbid.com, you can actually look at the management district plan. It explains our district, and then it actually explains the law, the 1994 law. And part of that law talks about the main premise being that assessments for improvements and activities which confer special benefits upon the real property or businesses for which the improvements and activities are provided. So basically with us, because we're lodging, restaurant, retail, and ski area, the efforts that go behind the TBID dollars have to provide special or specific benefit to those segments. Now that doesn't mean that it has to provide a specific benefit to an individual business, but on the retail side, it benefits the retail segment. So if one store doesn't necessarily see the benefit, but all the rest of them do, it's conferred to that group. And in our case, those benefits are increased visitation, so room nights, increased revenues to restaurants and bars and the ski area, as well as the retailers in town. So just for a little bit of a timeline, back in July of 2010, or actually in June of 2010, when I was interviewing for this position at Mammoth Lakes Tourism, one of the big things that came up was other funding sources. So we have Measure A, and the Measure A budget has always been there for a tourism standpoint. But one of the things that we talked about with the board during my interview was looking for alternative opportunities for funding sources. So our budget prior to the TBID was typically anywhere from about $2 million to $2.5 million coming in from TOT and from business licenses. So the opportunity to bring that number up is big. I think when we talk about back in 2013, when we started talking about the TBID, initially it was really put together with the idea that it was going to help propel us to the next level. Well, if you think about it, there are almost 100 of these in the state of California right now, including one in San Diego that's worth $31 million a year, Anaheim, which has a little mouse that they have people come visit. And all of a sudden, instead of it propelling us forward, it was kind of we need this to keep up. And so it was really important for us to get into that. So in spring of 2013, we started a steering committee with probably a couple of dozen business members from the community, business owners, managers, and they all represented the segments that would be included in the assessment for the TBID. And so we started the conversation, and obviously we looked at different places out there, but out of the nearly 100 TBIDs in the state of California, we're the only one that has expanded past lodging alone. So all of the other TBIDs are lodging specific. But because we live and die on tourism here, we expanded that into restaurants, retail, and the ski area with the idea that most of our businesses would not be here without visitation. Our town government wouldn't be here without visitation. 71% of the town's budget comes from TOT and sales tax. If we didn't have that coming in, we wouldn't have anybody here. So the expectation really when we put this in place in September of 2013, so collections started September 1, 2013. The expectation when people asked when we could start to see impacts was really 12 to 18 months. By the time we got the money, by the time we spent the money, we expected 12 to 18 months to be able to make that impact. By the time we collected, we started spending in May of 2014. June of 2015, so 13 months later, we shattered the old June record by almost 16%. Since then, we beat the record every month, with the exception of last April, and with the exception of just this past November of not beating the record from last year. So, fiscal 2015-16 for the town of Mammoth Lakes, and I'll use the TOT numbers just because those are really the easiest ones to grasp. So TOT for the year, fiscal year 2015-16, which ended June 30th of 2016, exceeded the previous record by 34%. So I think in business, if you exceed your record by 3 to 5%, 3 to 5%, you're happy. If you beat it by 34.5%, you're pretty ecstatic. What's really interesting is that we were able to see that this fiscal year, which just started back in July, right now we're about 17% ahead of last year's record. So as much as the numbers were out of the stratosphere last year, they're even higher this year. So we're continuing on that trend, which is a huge thing. I know snowfall is one of those things people like to say that's why we're up. But if you look at May 2016 through October 2016, we were anywhere from 15 to 39.5% above the previous record. So our low record-breaking month was almost 16%, which is again crazy. So I gave you guys the TBID mailer just in case you can't see up here. The next few slides are actually pieces that I just took out of the piece that we mailed out probably a month and a half ago. And one of the things that the steering committee came up with, so this year's steering committee back in August, we got another 25 people together to talk about the TBID and where we're going and what the successes were and things that might need to be changed. And one of the big things that came out of that meeting was a talk of the Mammoth Lakes ecosystem and how things flow in and flow through our ecosystem. So if you look up here, if you can see it, if you can't, check out in your mailer. But the first thing is generate a budget. You can't really go anywhere without money. And so when we generated the budget, that's where it all starts, is having proper funding to be able to go out and attract people. The second piece is building the marketing campaigns. And really that's to inspire visitation. And by inspiring visitation, people see the message and they become aware of the destination. I think everybody thinks that Mammoth Lakes is on the top of mind for everyone. But who has an idea how much of Southern California is even aware of Mammoth Lakes existing? What percentage of Southern California?
Well, less than 40.
Any other guesses?
Anybody else?
I was going to say 46.
25%?
You're going to say what? 46.
I mean, everybody, we always hear, well, people know Mammoth Lakes, they're going to come here anyway. 37% of Southern California has any clue as to who we are. It's really, it's kind of scary. So for us to be able to go out and make sure that that awareness is there is huge. And then the other thing is, when we talk about the ecosystem, is to really spread the seasons out. So we're really going after the 4-season visitors. And one of the things that we set as a goal with the town council was to get to 10 months of viability, meaning that we have at least 10 months that do $1 million in TOT. When we set that goal 12 months ago, 18 months ago maybe, we had 6 months that met that number. We now have 8 months. And I wouldn't be surprised if this April becomes our 9th month. The 10th month is going to be a little difficult because we do have shoulder seasons that are really tough to attract people because you don't know whether we're going to be golfing or skiing. Tioga Pass is going to be open. So we're really, because we're relying on the weather, that's dangerous. So we need to weatherproof ourselves as well. The experience, when people come up here, that's part of the ecosystem. They have a great experience. This past weekend, other than some of the rather long lines, the skiing was phenomenal, the weather was phenomenal. And people had a good experience. They're going to come back. They're going to tell their friends to come up here. So word of mouth is huge. And then with the increased revenues, it becomes the town has more money to work with to build things, but also we start to see new tourism infrastructure and activities come about. The workforce. One of the big things we wanted to look at was to try and shrink the shoulder seasons so that people didn't have to disappear when they were done. When the main summer season was done, they didn't go away for 2 months and maybe come back for winter. A lot of you in here are business owners or managers, and if you don't have to retrain your staff every single year, the amount of money and the amount of hassle you save is huge. So if we can get people to the point where they're not disappearing either for months at a time and then coming back or not coming back, that's a huge thing. Town improvements. So last year we exceeded budget by $4.43 million. What that meant was the police station that's being built, we got another $500,000 towards it. The airport terminal that will be built in the next 5 years, got another $500,000 towards it. The parking lot up by the Westin, the parking areas out here on Minaret, the paving of Old Mammoth Road, these are all things that were because of the fact that we had a windfall in budget. So I think one of the big things that's a little bit of a misnomer or people don't understand is that out of the $4.3 million, the town keeps 71% of that. So the general fund gets $3.1 million. So if we do our job, the town has a lot more money to work with. Mammoth Lakes Tourism keeps 19.3% of that. So a little less than $1 million came back to us to reinvest back in marketing.
Hey, John, is that based on TOT? Is that what you mean?
That is based on TOT, yep. So speaking of marketing, so in the past 3 years, TBID has raised about $13 million. Of that, roughly $7.8 million has gone to marketing, research, sales, and PR. So all of our efforts literally around the world. One of the most important things to note here is that with the addition of the TBID dollars, we did not add $1 of overhead or $1 in wages. So the TBID dollars are all dedicated towards marketing, air subsidy, and those are really the two pieces that we put the dollars towards. What we don't show on this slide here, we show the growth in media impressions going from 36 million to 89 million and all the different website growth. One of the things we don't show here are things like the increases to Measure R and U. More people in town, more utility use, Measure U goes up, those funds also get used for improvements around town. On the impact side, the town operating budget, as I mentioned before, relies heavily on TOT and sales tax. It's a huge piece for us. From this slide, you can see that since we started spending the dollars, lodging spending has gone up 17%, dining has gone up 31%, attractions have nearly doubled. So activities in town, whether it's lift tickets or snowmobile rentals or four-wheeler rentals, all those different things have gone up. Again, our goal is to get to 10 months of viability so that there really aren't those 2 months on either end of the year where things die off so much that you have to lay off your whole staff or that you close. I think one of the great examples this year, a lot of the restaurants in town, even in the past 6.5 years that I've been here, closed for a month. This year I saw a lot of those restaurants close for a week. And it was great to see a place like Roberto's close because they were putting in 2 new kitchens and they were doing all this because they've been very successful. So I think the impacts have been pretty massive on that side. One of the things we did this year was we did a survey of our businesses. And I think it's important to note, 84% of the businesses reported increased revenues since we put the TBID in place. So I think that's a great start. 72% said that they've seen a lot more new customers. Again, we go back to the 37% of Southern California that's aware of us. That number keeps climbing because we are bringing in new people with the marketing that we're doing in Southern California and other places. People are becoming more and more aware of us. They're coming up and visiting. I wish someone from the mountain was here because I think that the mountain saw a massive increase in first-time visitors last year. That is a huge. That tells us that this is working because people are finding out about this destination, and they're finding out because we're spending a lot more money to let people know that this is a place they need to come to on a year-round basis. International has grown. I think staffing, the other thing that we heard from the responses is that 46% said that they feel that they haven't had to either reduce their staffing or lay people off because of the increase in business. That's a huge thing. Again, if it goes back to the training and the effort that we put into our employees, we need to make sure that those people, once they're trained, that they don't disappear after 2 or 3 or 6 months. And then lastly, there's less of a reliance on winter. I've been in the ski industry since I was 15. I've lived in ski towns all over the country, and most ski towns roll up the sidewalks in the summertime with the idea that, we're going to make all of our money in the winter. And I think that that's something that most ski areas in the country are figuring out they can't do, and most ski towns are figuring out that they have to have that spring, summer, fall visitation in order to succeed and survive. The one thing down at the bottom here, the Vaughn's example, I've heard a lot of people talking about that. It's funny because I rode a chairlift a couple weeks ago with another ski team parent, and we were talking about the TBID, and he asked if my office had done the mailer, and I said yeah. And he said, I must spend a hell of a lot more at Vaughn's than you. I said, why? Well, because I must pay a lot more than that. He was thinking that he paid 1.5% on his total bill. And it's 1.5% on the it's on the taxable items, and everything that is non-taxable food items for human consumption is exempt. So your milk, bread, eggs, and cheese, all the stuff you have to live on, there's no TBID on that. A lot of what the steering committee did was the steering committee looked at how to lessen the impact on our locals. So you notice gasoline is not involved, utilities are not involved, and your basic needs for living as far as food are not involved. So that example there, that 3467, that was my family of 4. It was January 1, 2016 through June 30th of 2016, and it was a total of $9.11. It was up to $1.52 a month. So we try to minimize the impact on locals. Now, granted, you buy a season pass and it's $800 and there's 2% on it. You know, you're paying a little bit. It's $16. You come out to dinner here, you spend $100, it's $1.50. So yes, there's an impact on our locals. However, the idea is that you're going to be working more hours, you're going to get more tables, you're going to make more money. And if the example would be if you were a server, and even if you got one more table a day, 5 days a week at $10 in tips, and you go to Vaughn's and it's going to cost you $1.50 on TBID, you just made $50 and it cost you $1.52. Or you went out to dinner and it was $50 and it cost you 75 cents. So the idea is that the benefits outweigh the costs. So here we are again, TBID renewal this year. We started back in the late summer with another steering committee. We brought in about 25 different businesses from around town, folks that were involved the first time around as well as some newcomers. And we really asked those folks to look at all of the components of the TBID, look at the rates that we were charging, look at the appeals process, look at the communication of it. And the committee members did a great job. They went through the management district plan, they came up with different questions. There were a lot of things, when we put this together in 2013, there were a lot of things that we didn't know. You know, these were things that, this was the first time that a TBID had been built outside of just lodging alone. To the point where a lot of even the verbiage in the management district plan originally, a lot of places it just referred to room nights or lodging because that's our lawyers that put these together, that's what they do. It's, you know, 99 other TBIDs are just lodging alone. So being able to go through the district plan and making those comments was incredibly helpful. So at this point, we're looking to renew the TBID for a 10-year term. So when you do the initial Tourism Business Improvement District, you can only set it for 5 years. But when you renew, you can set it for up to 10 years. The idea of setting it up for up to 10 years is to provide sustainable marketing dollars to make sure that we have those dollars for the next 10 years minimum to be able to compete with our other destinations that are out there, from San Diego to Monterey to Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, all those places that are trying to keep people in Southern California. The assessment rates are not going to change at this point. You know, we're presenting the 10-year plan as the same rates that we have now. So 1% on lodging, 1.5% on restaurant and retail, 2% on lift tickets. Now the management district plan, because it is quite a living document, it is written in a way that if down the road here, if the businesses decide that they want to see the assessment rates change, up or down, it's written in the way that they can make that change without having to go back out to the petition process. That's a big thing, because if you change the district plan at all, typically you have to go back out and go get petitions from all the businesses again. So that is allowed to be done by the Mammoth Lakes Tourism Board, is the governing board of the TBID. All this information, like I said, can be found at mltbid.com. And you've got the management district plan, you've got copies of the petition, you've got the tourism economic study that explains why this is really an important thing for us. So it's a lot of good information on there. So the timeline. So we just started the petition process back on January 4th, and it'll run through February 1st. We sent out an initial email between the holidays and snowstorms, and then another holiday, and then another snowstorm. You know, I think we're gonna follow up with people again tomorrow. We're gonna send out an email with another petition. I have copies of it here if businesses do want to sign up and fill it out. Basically what we have to do is we have to get more than 50% of the assessed businesses have to vote to say, yes, we want to do this. And last time around we had 63.35% vote for it. This year, my hope is that we're going to exceed 70%, maybe even 75% of the vote to get this back to town council. On February 15th, we have a resolution of intent with the town council, and that's town council signing off on the fact that, yes, we intend to renew the TBID. Following that, there's a public meeting on March 1st, and then there's a resolution of formation and a public hearing on April 5th. That's the final vote. So on April 5th, the TBID is either approved or not approved, with the idea that it would go into place on September 1 of 2018. So we're a year and a half ahead of the actual expiration of the first TBID, but we wanted to make sure that we had it done well in advance. So all these new, the new management district plan, all those new appeals, everything else wouldn't go in place until September 1 of 2018. And I bet there are questions. Seriously?
Great job, John. Wow.
Come on, there's
We're
gotta
all
be
well
something.
programmed at this point.